when I rotate around my object, I find the surface finish to be super smooth, a bit too smooth to my liking. So like I said in the previous video, I'm going to show you how to add some bump textures to your geometries to give it a bit more of a realistic touch, okay? So let's go back to this armrest support. I'm selecting this and I'm going to make an inverted selection and hide everything else except my armrest support. And I'm going to zoom this in. And you can see the surface finish is very nice and smooth. But let's say that I want to add textures now. So I'm going to select my item and I'm going to go to the material under the properties tab. I'm going to select the material icon. So there's my dark blue armrest. All right, it's just the dark color that has been assigned, and I played with the reflectivity and the gloss finish basically, and that's it. You can see that there's no JPEG that I assigned to the diffuse channel. The only channel that I'm going to affect this time, it's going to be the bump channel. All right. So I'm going to click where it says click to assign texture. And I added to my folders two types of texture. The one is leather and the other one is plastic. So I'm going to select plastic. And you can Google, if you're new to the 3D world, you can Google bump map textures. And you're going to see it's either in the colors in gray shades. So it's only the bump textures only work with colors of grays. All right. When you with grayscales finishes. So you can see these two images. It's just the gray tones, and it's called bump maps basically. You also have in other software like in Unreal, when you create materials, it's also called normal maps. You might see that as well, but these colors are blue, but it's the same principle, is to create this illusion that you've got texture, a sort of 3D relief that is happening on the geometry. So I'm going to select the plastic material and click on open. And you can immediately see that the color is maintained, but the surface finish is completely different. However, it looks way too big, those textures, and I need to change the size of that. So again, like I did for the carbon fiber seat, I'm going to go to the texture mapping icon and I'm going to click on that. So this time I'm going to do the same as I did for the bucket seat. Basically, it's going to be a box map type of texture mapping. So I'm going to select apply box mapping like this, left click. So first corner of base by default is bounding box. So I just right click. I'm going to accept the default values. C plane also, I just right click and you can see the bounding box happening. And it's going to ask me if I want it to be capped, yes or no. I'm going to right click again to accept the capped value. And so if I deselect my object, that's what it looks like. All right. So it's applying the mapping in the front face, in the up and down faces, and in the back face as well. So what I need to do is change the size of my bump map texture. So I'm going to select my object again, and I'm going to click on the mapping widget where it says show mapping. So I'm click on that and make sure you deselect everything because I don't want the geometry to be selected. I need to select only the mapping widget. You can activate the gumball, or you can play with the XYZ position and key in the values, the rotation as well, and the size if you want. But you know, like I said many times, I prefer the gumball for that. So I'm going to press Shift and left click on one of the handles of my gumball and just size it so that it's very, very small. Let's make it very, very small. Now you can see here a line. Okay, this means that the texture, the JPEG, it's only one image, and the person who created that JPEG, because I just downloaded on the internet, he didn't bother to make it tileable. Okay, when you see this means that one end of that JPEG is meeting the other end of that JPEG, so it's meeting at its edge basically. And I'm just going to move the gizmo around so that I can try and hide this. Let's see if I can do that. Maybe if I rotate it by 90 degrees, there you go. And what I'm going to do is just stretch it a bit like that and just bring it down like that. So I'm just moving it around so that I can remove any seam line, any visible seam line. There you go. Something like that. All right. And then once you're done with that, you just select your object and you're going to go and click on hide mapping to hide it and then deselect everything. So now you've got your texture mapping applied. So I'm going to select again my object and I'm going to go back to the material and go back to where it says bump/normal. So Rhino V7 accept bump maps or normal maps. Okay, remember you can type that in in Google, you type plastic bump map or plastic normal map, and you're gonna have a whole bunch of images, either in grayscale or in blue color, and this is how you can affect the size. Now you can see here right next to the image, it says 30%. So this is the amount of bump map that you wanna have. If I exaggerate and I put it to 100%, you can see that now it's a lot more pronounced, okay? So you have to be very subtle about it. So I don't know, maybe 5%, a very small amount. Does it make a difference with 2%? Yeah, you can see that it's getting, the finish is getting more and more smooth, but this is a bit too smooth. So let's go back to 5%. And what if I do 10%? Yeah, 10% is not bad. And maybe I'm gonna tone down the reflectivity, bring it to 10% in my reflectivity slider, and then deselect, and there you have it. Okay, so that's how I create my plastic texture. And if I bring back, so I'm just gonna expand the toolbar for the hide icon, so it's called the visibility toolbar, and I'm just gonna select the third icon called show selected object. So I left click on that. So this is in no show, this is everything that is hidden, and I'm just going to select this armrest, for example, and I'm going to right click. I'm going to bring this armrest here, and because I've created a different material, dark blue armrest, and you see between parentheses it says 1, so this is a clone of the original, and I don't have the bump mapping here. So you can use the match function if you want, but you know, I can also go to my bump channel here. So I go to bump channel, click to assign texture, go and find the plastic grayscale, click open. I'm going to put it to 10%, the amount of bump map. And I need to go back to my texture mapping. I'm going to do a box mapping. So I left click, bounding box right click, C-plane right click, and cap yes right click. And automatically you can see the texture being applied. However, the size is too big, so I just go in, select my geometry and click on show mapping. There's my mapping widget, deselect everything and then select the mapping widget in only. And with the gumball, I'm going to press shift and click on this handle to make a scale 3D like that. Maybe stretch it on the width size. And that looks about right to me. That's not too bad. Maybe make it a bit bigger. Bump map, something like that. And then select your geometry and you click on hide mapping, and there you have it. Okay, so now if I bring back everything, you can see that, oh, here you see here, that's interesting. So when I apply the texture maps, the coordinates are applied only here and here. Okay, the properties are the same as the original two ones that I've created, but the texture maps are not the same. All right, so this one I need to reassign the texture map that I assigned for this one. You can see that it's much smaller. So one way to save you time, if I select this armrest, we can clearly see that the bump maps are way too big. You select your item, your geometry, all right, and you don't need to redo it. Of course, you could do it if you want, but it's longer. To save you a step, you've got this icon here called match mapping. This is in your texture mapping icon, okay? So I've got the match mapping. I click on that, and it says select the source object, and it's going to take the same mapping coordinates as the first item that I created. And so I just left click on the original armrest, my source object, and you can see that now the stretching has been reduced, the size of my bump maps have been reduced. So I'm going to do it again. I select my item. You can see clearly here that the bump maps are way too big, so I need to reassign the texture size. Select the armrest, and in the texture icon, texture mapping icon, you've got here match mapping. So I'm going to left click on that, and in the command line it says select the source object. So I'm just going to zoom out, and let's see if I can see this. And you just click on the original armrest where I created the texture size, and now you can see that now it's much smaller. All right, so it's simply by using the match mapping function. So we're getting there slowly but surely. And again, I've got the same here for my leather. So this time it's a PBR material. So I'm going to click on the material. It's a leather blue, and by clicking on detailed settings, I've added the bump channel, basically, if you remember. All right, So again, it's the same principle. So it says here bump normal displacement map. Click to assign the texture. So I'm going to left click on that. This time I'm going to choose leather and I'm going to click open. First, maybe, okay, it's going to take some time. Yeah, okay. There you go. So I've got here the leather channel that has been applied. And you can see it here, very subtle. So I like it at 30%. That's pretty nice. Maybe I might want to increase it to, I don't know, 50%. Oops, sorry about that. Let's do it again. 50%. All right, so there you go. There's your material. There's something weird. Maybe I'm going to remove this. I just want to make sure. Yeah, my mistake played with the opacity. That's why I found it that way. It was good. This is fully transparent, by the way, so I have to slide it up all the way to 100%. There you go. Okay, so now we have this. I still want to understand this anisotropy. Click on the amount. So anisotropy, typically that's the for the highlights, if I'm not mistaken. It's the look of the highlight, but maybe I don't have enough reflection. That's why it doesn't look that. If I reduced it, maybe the roughness, but I don't want to reduce it. I don't want to make it too bright and shiny either. So just, you can see the color of the HDRI reflecting of the bump maps. That's really adding to the realism. So, but I don't want to make it too reflective either. So, okay, I'm going to leave it like that. That's not bad. Okay. So that's it. That's how you apply. And again, you can go in the texture mapping icon. You can click on the box mapping, bounding box, C-plane, cap yes. Let the software apply the textures. Select your object. Click on show mapping. There's my mapping widget. So just make sure that you select your mapping widget, and I can scale my bump maps if I want. It's kind of hard to see because it's dark blue, you know, but I'm sure it's going to be a lot easier for you to read on your own computer screen when you're about to work on your project. Okay, so I'm going to leave it at that, and I'm going to hide the mapping. It's the same principle as I did for the armrests. All right, so there you have it. So this is how we apply the texture mapping. As for the rest, well, I can select this one, go back to my materials and unscroll the list. And since I created leather, I can click on this and you can see the material being applied here. Okay, so now because we're in the shadows, it's kind of hard to see, but we can still see the textures, you know. We can still see it fairly well. And you know, later on I'll readjust with the lighting and get something ready for the photo shoot basically. All right, so do that and we'll move on to the next step. Thank you.